21 Lessons for the 21st Century 유발로와 하라리 21 Lessons for the 21st Century As authorities shift from humans to algorithm, we may no longer view the world as the playground of autonomous individuals struggling to make the right choice. Instead, we might perceive the entire universe as a flow of data. The organism as a little modern biochemical organism, and believe that humanity cosmic vocation is to create all-encompassing data processing system and then manage into it. Already today, we are becoming tiny chips inside the giant data processing system that nobody really understands. Every day I observe countless data bits through emails, tweets, and articles, process the data, and transmit back new bits through more emails, tweets, and articles. I don't know where I fit into great scheme of things, or how my bit of data connect with the bit produced by billions of other humans and computers. I don't have time to find out because I am too busy answering all these emails. The philosophical car. People might argue that algorithm will never make important decisions for us because important decisions usually involve an ethical dimension, and algorithms don't understand ethics. Yet, there is no reason to assume that algorithms won't be able to outperform the average human even in ethics. Today, as devices such as smartphone and autonomous vehicle undertake decisions that used to be a human monopoly, their creators are already starting to grapple with some kinds of ethical problem that have believed bedeviled humans for millennia. For example, suppose two kids chasing a ball jump right in front of a self-driving car. Based on its lightning calculation, the algorithm driving the car conducts that the only way to avoid hitting the two kids is to swerve into the opposite lane and risk colliding with an oncoming truck. The algorithm calculates that in such a case, there is a 70% chance that the owner of the car, who is fast asleep in the backseat, will be killed. What should the algorithm do? Philosophers have been arguing that such trolley problem for millennia. They are so called because the textbook example in modern philosophical debate refer to a runaway trolley car racing down a track rather than to a self-driving car. Up till now, these arguments have had embarrassingly little impact on actual behavior, because in times of crisis, humans all too often forget about their philosophical view and follow their emotion and good instincts instead. One of the nastiest experiments in the history of the social science was conducted in December 1970 on a group of students on Princeton Theological Seminary who were training to become ministers in the Presbyterian Church. Each student was asked to hurry to a distant lecture hall to give a talk on the Good Samaritan parable, which tells how a Jew traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho was robbed and beaten by a criminal, who then left him to die by the side of the road. After some time, a priest and Levite walked by, and both ignored the man. In contrast, a Samaritan, a member of a sect much despised by the Jew, stopped and he see the victim, take care of him, and save his life. The moral of the parable is that people's merit should be judged by their actual behavior rather than by their religious affiliation and philosophical views. The eager young seminarian rushed to the lecture hall, contemplating on the way how best to explain the moral of the parable. But the experimenters planted in their path a shabbily dressed person who was sitting slumped in a doorway with his head down and his eye closed. As each unsuspecting seminarian hurried past, the victim coughed and groaned pitifully. Most seminarians did not even stop to inquire what was wrong with the man, let alone offer any help. The emotional stress created by the need to hurry to the lecture hall trumped their moral obligation to help strangers in distress. Human emotions trump philosophical theory in countless other situations. They make the ethical and philosophical history of the world a rather depressing tale of wonderful ideal and less than ideal behavior. How many Christians actually turn the other cheek? How many Buddhists actually rise above egoistic obsession? And how many Jews actually love their neighbors as themselves? That's just the way natural selection has shaped Homo sapiens. Like all mammals, Homo sapiens used emotion to quickly make life and death decisions. You have inherited our anger, our fear, and our lust from millions of ancestors, all of whom passed the most rigorous quality control test of natural selection. Unfortunately, what was good for survival and reproduction in the African savanna a billion years ago does not necessarily make for responsible behavior on 21st century moral ways. Distracted, angry, and anxious human drivers kill more than a million people in traffic accidents every year. You can send all our philosophers, prophets, and priests to preach ethics to these drivers, but on the road, mammalian emotions and savanna instincts will still take over. Consequently, seminarian in a rush will ignore people in distress, and drivers in Christ will run over helpless pedestrians. This disjunction between the seminary and the Lord is one of the biggest practical problems in ethics. Immanuel Kant, John Stuart Mill, and John Locke can sit in same cozy university hall and discuss theoretical ethical problem for days, but would their conclusion actually be implemented by stressed out drivers caught in split second emergency? Perhaps Michael Schumacher, the Formula One champion who is sometimes hailed as the best driver in history, has the ability to think about philosophy while racing a car, but most of us aren't Schumacher. Computer algorithms, however, have not been saved by natural selection, and they have neither emotion nor good instincts. Therefore, in moments of crisis, they could follow ethical guidance much better than humans, provided we find a way to code ethics in precise numbers and statistics. If we could teach Kant, Mill, and Rawls to write code, they would be able to program self-driving car in their cozy laboratory and be certain that the car would follow their commandment on the highway. In fact, every car would be driven by Michel Schumacher and Immanuel Kant rolled into one. If you program a self-driving car to stop and help strangers in distress, it will do so come hell or high water, unless of course you insert exception clause for infernal or high water scenarios. Similarly, if your self-driving car was programmed on swap into the opposite lane in order to save the two keys in each pass, you can ban your life. This is exactly what it will do, which means that when designing their self-driving car, Toyota or Tesla will be transforming a theoretical problem in the philosophy of ethics into a practical problem of engineering. Granted, the philosophical algorithm will never be perfect. Mistakes will still happen, resulting in injury, desert, and extremely complicated lawsuit. For the first time in story, you might be able to sue a philosopher for the unfortunate result of his or her theory, because for the first time in history, you might be able to prove a direct causal link between philosophical ideas and real-life events. However, in order to take over from human drivers, the algorithm won't have to be perfect. They will just have to be better than the humans. Given the manual, human drivers kill more than 1 million people each year. They didn't search tall water. When all is said and done, would you rather the car next to you was being driven by a drunk teenager or by a Schumacher Kent team? The same logic is true not just for the drive but of many other situations as well. Take, for example, job application. In the 21st century, the decision whether to hire somebody for a job will increasingly be made by algorithm. We cannot rely on the machine to set a relevant ethical standard. People will still need to do that. But once we decide on an ethical standard in the job market, that it's wrong to discriminate against black or against women. For example, we can rely on machines to implement and maintain this standard better than humans. A human manager may know and even agree that it's unethical to discriminate against black and women, but then when a black woman applies for a job, the manager subconsciously discriminates against her and decides not to hire her. If we allow a computer to evaluate job application and program the computer to completely ignore race and gender, we can be certain that the computer will indeed ignore these factors, because computers don't have a subconscious. Of course, it won't be easy to write code for evaluating job application, and there is always a danger that the engineer will somehow program their own subconscious biases into the software. Yet once we discover such mistakes, we would probably by far easier to debug the software than to rid humans of their racist and misogynist biases.